ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin, this is my co-host Teddy, and today we're doing a showdown between the Gigabyte Gaming OC Vega 56 going up against the Inno3D Hercules Twin X2 GTX1070Ti. So let's dive straight into it then and talk about the GPUs themselves. So in the Vega 56 card, you're getting the 14nm Vega 10 GPU with 3584 stream processors, and in the NVIDIA GPU, you're getting the 16nm GP104 Pascal GPU with 2432 CUDA cores. Now, as far as the clock speeds go, the Gaming OC Vega 56 went up to 1555 MHz out of the box. The Inno3D Twin X2 GTX1070Ti went up to 1898 MHz straight out of the box. Now, memory-wise, the Vega 56 comes with 8 GB of HBM2 memory at 8000 MHz compared to the 8 GB of GDDR5 memory at 8000 MHz in the Twin X2 1070Ti. So you may think, wow, that means that the 1070Ti has a big advantage here because the memory is running at 8000 MHz versus 800 MHz. Well, it doesn't really work like that, guys. It's very hard to explain this in a basic way, but the Vega 56 here does have the advantage in terms of memory. The HBM2 memory is basically much closer to the GPU, so the clock speed doesn't really matter as much. It's a much more advanced memory than GDDR5, which has been out for a while. So just in the memory department, the Vega 56 card does have the advantage. Now, TDP-wise, the 1070Ti comes back because it only has a 180 watt TDP to the 210 watt TDP of the Vega 56. This means that you can get away with smaller coolers with things like the 1070Ti. It'll also use less power overall than the Vega 56, but there isn't that much of a discrepancy between the two, not like other NVIDIA versus AMD cards, that's for sure. So let's talk about the coolers then, because there is quite a large difference between the two, especially in size. So the Gigabyte Gaming OC Vega 56 comes with Gigabyte's WindForce X2 cooler. This is a good cooler. Comes with 100mm fans, a big heatsink, and it does have upgraded components, which is good for if you're going to overclock graphics card. But even if you're not going to overclock, it's just good for the lifespan of the graphics card. The Twin X2 GTX 1070Ti, I should say. This is very hard to find information on. I couldn't find barely any information in the unboxing video about this cooler. You can tell the fans are much smaller. They're like half the size of the Gaming OC's fans, much smaller heatsink and everything. And as far as I can tell, it just has standard components on here. So in terms of the cooling, the Gaming OC Vega 56 has a huge advantage here over the Twin X2 GTX 1070Ti. So with all that being said, let's jump to the benchmarks and see how these two GPUs perform. These are quite a few different games here, so it should give us a good idea on which one of these cards is going to have the higher performance. back. So in terms of the number of wins there, the Gaming OC Vega 56 won 6 of the benchmarks, whereas the 1070 Ti only won 3. Now that being said, it did win some of them by a very small margin, like the Rainbow Six Siege benchmarks, but they were wins nevertheless. So in terms of performance, you should expect better performance out of the Vega 56 over the 1070 Ti. But that being said, it's not going to be by a huge margin. It's only going to be by a little bit in certain titles. So, you know, but it still does have the better performance, so we have to give it to the Vega 56. But performance isn't everything. What about the temperatures, especially given that the difference in the size of coolers between these two GPUs? Well, for this, I ran the Unigine Valley benchmark on the Extreme HD preset, and I took the highest temperatures and the highest fan speeds I saw them go up to. The Gaming OC Vega 56 went up to 70 degrees Celsius at 59% fan speed, and the 1070 Ti Twin X2 went to 73 degrees Celsius at 80% fan speed. So what does that mean then? Well, out of the box, they will go up to a certain temperature, but the Twin X2 is running a lot higher in terms of fan speed. That means you have much less thermal headroom. If you want to go in and set a manual fan curve, like many of the guys that overclock them will do, it means you don't have that much headroom to run like a much more aggressive fan curve with the Twin X2 1070 Ti. Whereas on the Gaming OC Vega 56, you can run a much more aggressive fan curve there. You've got a lot more headroom there. Not only that, but even in its stock fan curve, it did run 3 degrees cooler. So let's talk about the noise then, and this was the most bizarre thing of all. You would think the Gaming OC would win here, because we just saw the fan speeds are a lot lower on the Gaming OC Vega 56, and you would be wrong. Bizarrely, the little Twin X2 here was quieter. Now, it's partly because the fans are much smaller. So obviously, when you have bigger fans, there's more, air being displaced, and obviously more noise. Whereas with these tiny fans, that's not the case. Now, I know in some builds, and people use like little 80mm fans, and they're so noisy, but they're spinning so fast. With these ones, they don't seem to be spinning that fast. So they're sort of small and not spinning, out of control like some people have case fans do. So that's why they're not particularly loud. But both of these graphics cards were pretty good in terms of noise. I mean, it's nothing to complain about. I will say one thing, though, is that the coil whine was noticeably higher on the Vega 56 card over the 1070 Ti. But, like always, I'll let you guys judge for yourself. So this is what they both sounded like during the Unigine Valley benchmark. So as you guys heard, the Twin X2 1070 Ti is quieter, but not by a huge margin, but it still is quieter. It is quite, bizarre that this little cooler is the one that's quieter. But that being said, you have to remember that this Gaming OC has pretty massive fans on it. These 100mm twin fans are quite big, and they obviously displace a lot of air. But that's also good in the sense that if you're someone who doesn't care so much about noise, but you just want good temperatures, as I said earlier, you can run a much more aggressive fan curve with this graphics card, and that'll bring the temperatures down, which will give you quite a lot of overclocking headroom. Although with Vega GPUs, it can be a little bit difficult to overclock them when compared to like the 1070 or 1070 Ti. Which brings us nicely into the conclusion, and which one of these graphics cards wins the showdown, and which one do I recommend? So let's bring price into it. So right now at Playtech in New Zealand, the Gaming OC Vega 56 is coming in at 1,254 New Zealand dollars, which is absolutely massive. The Herculez Twin X2 GTX1070 Ti is coming in at 849 New Zealand dollars. Now that is on special. It's normally $949. So price-wise, the Twin X2 1070 Ti here is much, much cheaper. Even at its normal price, it's still $300 cheaper, and at its special price right now, it's $400 cheaper than the Gaming OC. And this is what you've always got to look out for. If we were to take price out of it in terms of this showdown, then I would say the Gaming OC wins. It's just the higher performance card. I think it would maintain that performance better in the future as well going forward. The AMD cards generally do age better. It ran a bit lower in terms of temps, but it had that slightly higher fan noise, but that's fine. You can work that out with custom fan curves and that. And overall, this would be the card I would recommend. But when we bring price into the equation, I just cannot recommend it. That is just way, way, way too much money. It's just way too high. So I have to give it to the Inno3D Hercules Twin X2 1070Ti, purely based on price. This card is very good value for money. At its current price, $850 here in New Zealand for a 1070Ti. That is a lot of card for your money. Now, is this graphics card good? I would say it's only okay. But at that price, it's a very good deal, especially if you're not interested in overclocking at all. This would be quite a good one. I know there's a lot of funniness with overclocking 1070Ti's, but yeah, people still want to do it. And for the people that do, I would probably recommend going for a different model of 1070Ti, or maybe just highly overclock a 1070 if you can get it quite a bit cheaper. But yeah, that's how I would basically put it. I have to give it to the Twin X2, but it's only because of that much lower price point. But I want to kick it to you guys like always. Do you agree with me? Which one would you go for? And maybe in your country there is not much difference between the price. Maybe in your country the Gaming OC here is the same price as a 1070Ti. And there's not that much discrepancy between the two. In which case I would definitely go for the Vega 56. It's always just going to depend on the pricing. So let me know in the comment section down below which one of these you would go for and what the pricing is like in your country. As always, if you haven't subscribed to Tech Showdown, I suggest you do, because I've got a lot of good Ryzen content right around the corner. You guys are really going to like it. Can't say much right now, but you're going to really like some of the upcoming CPU showdowns, that's for sure. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.